Good evening, everyone. I call this planning board meeting to order. First order of business would be to appoint Murray Collette as a voting member. Continuation for the public hearing for Randy Martin's planned residential development. So we have received, I guess maybe Christine, I'll let you explain it, but basically we've sought out legal review of the HOAs and they came back and they pretty much said that it's fine, and so here we are.
Yeah, so the only thing they asked for is that separate document for the road waiver, the liability stuff, which I think you had put some on the plans, but they want it to be a separate document. So that was the only thing. So I have that here. So the select board signs it, so it would just be a condition of approval, but if you want to read it and just make sure everything on there is accurate. The bold is the stuff that I added.
Yeah, we'll sign it Tuesday.
So if you want to sign it now and hand it to Bill, that's fine, or if you want to go to the select board meeting, it's up to you, but I wanted you to have time to look at it before. I think that's the only thing, right?
Or you can drop it off at the town office.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
But, great. Well, thank you for doing that.
I can send you that in the Word doc if that's helpful. Yeah, and then you can just,
Great.
perfect.
Thanks so much.
Okay, so what would be our procedure now, knowing that?
Unless there's other questions, we can entertain a motion, I think.
Yeah, and make it conditional on the signing of the.
Yeah, I have the conditions.
Close the hearing first?
Well, we actually closed it at our last meeting, so this is planning board review versus.
Okay, continuation of review.
Yeah,
Okay. So technically.
and there's no butters here, so.
Mhm.
Yes, there is, but I don't care.
Oh.
Yeah.
Sorry, Bill.
Really in a
So, yeah, and there's conditions. So the motion to approve, the conditions are, the approval of the subdivision of land for New Hampshire DES is required for all lots under 5 acres. And so I think Randy is aware of that one. Just want to make sure you're hearing.
She's reading the.
Okay. So the first is obviously the DES approval for the septic is one of the conditions. The signing of that document, whatever you all agree on. And I couldn't remember the monuments set already set, so I'm gonna take that one off. That will be another condition.
Russ has that information.
Russ has that information. I don't know if you want to say that now, Russ. Do you have,
I have the tally here. What I didn't know is how many Mylars were getting recorded.
Well, usually one.
And we had
Right.
Yeah,
one sheet.
one sheet?
Mhm.
Is that just the one sheet? Because it's $24 per sheet plus $25 for L chip,
Right,
$2 searcher.
right.
Well, I wasn't sure how many sheets were doing.
Yeah, we just,
So just one.
I think it's just one.
yeah, we have,
Subdivision.
there's another one in here for the tab.
Yeah,
It's two.
yeah,
Okay, so it's, so one check made out to registry for $25. One check made out to the registry for $26. And then one check made out to the town for $814.87. That's the application fees.
application fees, the notice to
Notification,
butters,
Ledger ad,
2 ledger ads.
$814.87.
And that's to the town?
To the town.
Not trouble.
And then this is not a condition, it's just a statement that we put on whenever the property has wetlands, and it's just an acknowledgement. Sorry, the lights blinked. That there's requirements if you're gonna do anything in the wetland area, which I'm sure you're aware of. So it's not a condition, it's just an acknowledgement. So that would be the motion then to approve the application for planned residential development for Randy Martin, map 8A, lot 8-2-1, with the conditions precedent approval of the subdivision of land from New Hampshire DES for lots under 5 acres. Select board approval of the agreement to release the town from liabilities for the private road. Delivery of the checks, which were just listed from Russ, and then the acknowledgement of wetlands. That's the motion.
Do you have a second? Seconded by Jim. Okay, Russ, how do you vote?
Yes.
Jim? I vote yes.
Yes,
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
great. So then,
Passes.
yeah, we'll get you the notice of decision within 5 days in writing. And then you can work out with the select board to get the document signed and drop off the checks. And once, did you get DES approval already or not yet? That's not, we haven't seen anything yet. So once that's in, then we would bring to registry of deeds along with the HOA and the document from the select board. So that's it.
Gee, what do we do now for 25 minutes?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. We'll talk about
we have a couple other things. We could-
solar.
Our meeting, yes.
Well, do you want to talk about the Marsh letter?
We can do that first, sure, yeah, absolutely. Yep.
It's another, somebody put in like the, it's in here.
Oh, she's coming to the next meeting. Yeah, there was the email from the resident that wanted to subdivide parcel, but it would,
Right.
there's complications, so we'll have to,
We're gonna come to the next meeting.
yeah, they'll come to the next meeting. Or just an informal consultation.
Yep.
I think you have that already, right, for the next agenda? Yeah, perfect. So then we got the, sorry, you're the chair.
Well, no, I mean, it's fine. Yeah, we got a letter from Alan Marsh. And
Awesome.
You would-
I will do that.
Thank you.
I'm gonna go with the milers.
so there was actually 2 letters.
One was to the ZBA,
Okay.
so I,
So the ZBA, they basically asked that, wondering if they said, good day, is there any progress on our application for a permit for an antique automotive restoration facility? And then also the planning board received a letter saying, as you may be aware, we've applied to the zoning board of adjustment for permission to operate an antique automotive restoration facility. Should we be pursuing this with your board simultaneously? Or is the ZBA approval required prior?
it is not recommended.
Mm.
It is strongly discouraged.
I would.
Yes, and that's per town council.
Yes.
Yep. Mhm.
Yeah, and procedurally, wouldn't make sense to
Right.
spend the money and the time to do a site plan and then,
Mhm.
oh, you didn't get it.
And you don't know what conditions the ZBA is going to put on it, if they even approve it.
Right.
That makes sense.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not opposed to like doing a site walk with the ZBA at the same time. If that's something we want to do, but I don't think we can consider an application.
Yeah. It certainly wouldn't be, we've set the precedent with Ben's maple syrup products, because that request was asked and it was denied.
Mm,
So,
Okay.
you know, that precedent's been already set, but
okay.
cannot,
I
wouldn't be fair to him.
I wouldn't
But,
recommend,
yeah.
I would vote against doing it at the same time, but personally, so I,
That's true, I don't think it's a good idea.
I would vote against it too, as a prior ZBA member and as a planning board member, no.
so we should respond to Mr. Marsh in writing.
Yes.
You want to do that? Or you want-
Yeah, we'll figure out how to respond. And basically, we're just gonna say that, it's been recommended by town council, that it wouldn't be, in our best interest as a board to grant your wish to do it simultaneously, and the precedent's been set in past cases in town, and was voted no to not do that, so, in so many words, I think that's,
Do you want me to write it?
yeah.
Is that what-
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say it like that, I can write it like that. You're better at it than me, there's no doubt.
Just use your phone and do the voice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, okay. How about I do the notice of decision and you do the letter?
Yeah, I'll do the letter,
Because the notice of decision is gonna take me a while. For,
that one is,
for Randy's,
Yeah.
yeah.
okay.
Was there any response from the ZBA about?
I don't know.
It's been very difficult to get anything from them. Yeah, they're totally opaque these days.
Speaking of, I also emailed you about the all-purpose storage
Mhm.
that, the applicant was told they didn't need to ask for an extension, but our zoning actually says if they haven't started work on the project, they do need to ask for an extension. So, we should, I don't know if you let the
Well,
ZBA know.
I had talked, what was it, a year ago or last fall?
It was, well, it was expiring in May, so.
Yeah,
it's
so it was the
probably-
spring. I spoke with Deb Harling and we decided that, well, she basically said that it didn't expire, so they didn't need to do anything. So I contacted, was it Chuck from
Fieldstone.
Fieldstone?
Mhm.
And let him know that I spoke with the ZBA that they don't, and I don't know if there was an actual formal letter or anything, but we basically told them that they did not have to do anything.
Yeah, so I think we should talk to the town attorney to find out what would be appropriate. I
Yeah,
don't,
I don't think the ZBA can just override that.
it's in our zoning ordinance,
Right.
Yeah,
but they attempted to get. They tried to do what they needed to do, so I think we need to
Okay.
correct the situation.
yeah, I don't know, I mean, when you tell, I mean, they were told that they were,
Right, so it's our mistake.
yeah, okay,
Yeah.
as long as we know that, so, yeah, they didn't,
Absolutely.
they didn't do anything wrong, but it's.
They did not.
Yeah,
They did
yeah.
not do anything wrong.
Yeah.
So. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but I suspect we're gonna have to just give them the extension.
And when, for a year? or-
Yeah, it was for a year, is what our zoning ordinance says.
So is that the ZBA that does that, or is that,
The ZBA will have to do it.
yeah, so do they know that?
I don't know, that's, I
Yeah.
told you.
Okay, okay. All right. Mhm. Mhm. So basically, they should they should contact them and draft a letter explaining that, you know, what happened.
Right.
But we will give you another extension for another year, but after that, our zoning laws do say
Yeah,
that
I mean,
it has to be something done.
yeah, it expired
Okay.
May 21st.
Yeah,
So maybe the extension is through May 21st, 2026. But so I don't know if you were aware, but it turns out they do need sprinklers for that design. So I don't know if they're going to do a redesign or if they're going to decide to put in sprinklers. We haven't heard anything. But George Clark said he would not sign. So. Yeah, it was a little bit different, the drawing that they submitted than what we had approved, but the footprint wasn't different.
okay. Did anybody get an email from Carol Ogilvy?
No.
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh,
came in late.
It was, wasn't it?
oh.
I thought it was.
Okay.
Okay, I didn't think it was real. Yeah, Yeah.
Good, no?
yeah.
Oh, draft minutes.
You can do that now.
Mhm.
Anybody have any changes?
I did not.
No. I'll move they be accepted as written.
Second. Thanks, guys.
See you guys.
Thanks so much.
Take care. Can you,
I wasn't
no,
there.
you have to abstain. Yep, I vote yes.
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 Interesting.
Yeah, well, okay, 4 of us, we'll get quorum at least.
Yep.
Okay, minutes accepted as written. And what else, I guess?
Hailey Beal, any update? Is that filed? Registry of Deeds?
Um, Let's see, Matt Cabana was gonna bring that down
Okay.
and do that,
Right.
so I guess I'll check with Matt.
And we have 15 minutes to talk solar.
Yeah, we should do that.
Oops.
Okay.
Matt was, so the only thing we need to do on the Beals subdivision was just file at the registry of deeds.
I believe that was it,
Was
yeah.
it? Yeah, okay, Matt. Mhm.
Unless you had a public comment, not related. Okay. So, last Tuesday was the, planning board peer. I forget what the group is called, but the group met out in Dublin, the other planning board members from other towns that we hosted here once. And the subject was solar, so it was timely for us. Other towns are not as far along as we are, but, it was still helpful. They did a little handout, but it's stuff we all already have. But I did ask a couple questions about our draft ordinance, and I think we still need to make some decisions, but I don't know if everybody's had a chance to look at it or has any specific questions. But I did ask if we could send it to the Soul Smart person for review before we send it to legal, just get another set of eyes on it. I think, if you don't mind, I was just gonna ask a couple questions so I can get a little bit further along in the version that I send them. So mainly I just updated where it said town and put in Temple or town of Temple. Then, let's see. We were discussing size for large scale ground mounted and mid scale ground mounted. Their definition was large scale is 10 acres or more, mid scale was 10 acres or less. We can play with those numbers if we want to change that at all. What was recommended was when we're talking about ground mounted residential or commercial, we talk about, or we look at what's in our special exception for like a commercial development and look at the land area that we allow to be developed, and it's 1/8 of an acre. So that was one of the recommendations when we talk about what size would trigger a special exception or site plan review. Now, I don't know how everyone feels about that. It's good to be consistent, but I also want to recognize that we can still change that, but
That would be, yeah, that'd be a pretty good size array for somebody's house.
it would be, yeah.
Certainly, it's not restrictive to say an acre triggers it.
Right, right. We could,
Make it smaller, but I mean.
it depends on the lot size,
yeah,
right?
Right.
Yeah. But it seemed reasonable to me when we're talking about ground mounted primary use, not just on somebody's, property with a house. It would just be if the only thing on the lot is solar panels,
Mm.
then it can't be bigger than 1/8. Or it would trigger. Yeah, that's the maximum size
An eighth of the lots.
of the lot size. Yeah,
Like 50 by 100. That's a thing tonight, the night. Really, an acre? quarter is 100 by 105.
Well, it's the lot size. So if it's a 10-acre lot, an eighth of that 10 acres
Right.
would be the maximum.
So that could be pretty big.
Yeah. it'd
It could be
that'd
pretty big,
Yeah.
right?
So why, they recommended eighth of an. eighth-
Well, when we talked about
well, eighth of an acre.
what triggers, and Sarah just walked in, so I don't want to put her on the spot, but if we're talking about a special exception or a site plan review, we're talking about an eighth of an acre. That's the maximum that we allow to be developed.
I think it's reasonable that an eighth of an acre would trigger. Because anything bigger than eighth of an acre is probably more than your house.
Yeah, well, if you have 100-acre lot, an eighth
Yeah.
lot is big.
Well, that's how I was getting, the array would be, an eighth of an acre is 52 by
Right.
104 feet.
Okay, that's fine for, I'd say it's an absolute eighth of an acre trigger,
Mhm.
is what I would
Yeah.
like.
That's probably a reason why they set that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So we can revisit. This doesn't have to be our final decision. It's just to think about that. And I broke out the historic district because that has different requirements. And then the village district, different than the historic district. So the questions are on the ground mounted primary, do we want to distinguish between residential and commercial? Or just the size? Do we want to say ground mounted residential permitted? Or do we still want to trigger if it's,
Like the ground mounted residential.
permitted?
Hmm.
That was what the Conservation Commission
Yeah,
felt as well.
Hmm.
Unless it's commercial, then that's a little bit different.
changes to.
And that's consistent with our zoning anyway.
Right. Well, like I said, we can always change it. But we'll go with that for now. How are we doing on time? The other-
Let's replay that. What's the change in it?
So if it's residential,
Yep.
it's permitted. If it's commercial, they have to get a special exception
Correct.
and site plan review.
Okay, so instead of SPR, it's.
But does that also mean though, if it's residential, it's permitted, but if it's bigger than an eighth of an acre, then it needs a special.
Yeah, no, if it's bigger than an eighth of the lot size. Not an eighth of an acre.
Oh.
Yeah,
oh, so if it was a 100-acre lot,
yeah. I mean, who's
it could be a really.
That's a
big-
lot.
I think it's a second- Yeah. No,
residential
but
use?
But any lot, where it's only, where it has to be an acre lot. Like it's one of these substandard sized lots, an eighth of that lot wouldn't cover your house or be anything.
Well, they wouldn't be able to do it. I
But
think.
you mean some pre-existing small,
Yeah, even a 3 acre.
not pre-existing
An eighth
non-conforming.
of
lot.
3 acres is pretty small
So if it's residential, it's permitted.
anyways.
Mhm.
I'm just trying to get devil's advocate.
That's okay, that's
So
fine.
it's residential, and then you've got the ADU, the detached ADU, and you're trying to power all of them. Like my house, when we had the guy come, I know how big they were gonna say mine was gonna be. And mine was 12 by 80. And that wasn't covering the whole house. I said, wow, I thought that was enormous.
Ours is 36 by 12, it's 8 kilowatt system. That would power a house and an ADU. easily.
36 by 12.
Yeah,
And the.
it's roof mounted, so
Remember, this is primary use on the lot, so it's separate lot. It's not the same lot that the house is on.
oh, well, yeah.
It's an abutting lot. So I mean, if we assume it's at least a 3 acre lot, I mean, there are obviously lots that are smaller, but
Right.
undeveloped lots, probably not very many. Am I explaining it? All right, Sarah? We're talking about the solar. Yes. Size, what's the size? Right.
There's a microphone in there.
I haven't heard the full conversation,
Okay.
so I'm
Sorry,
uncomfortable
I
to
will put
say
you on the spot.
yes.
Then I will throw it back to our solar people and get some clarification on that.
Yep.
The other just general questions is throughout their draft document, they talk about conditional use permits, which we don't really use. So that's where a lot of it I changed to special exception or site plan review.
Yep.
Let's see, I added the crushed stone, which was recommended from the Conservation Commission. This may be a question for you, Bill. It says applications that meet the design requirements of this ordinance will be granted administrative approval by the zoning official. So it's the building inspector?
That's rather indeterminate based, we don't.
We don't do
It
that.
could be the zoning board, it could be the
But
building inspector.
currently, does somebody go out to look at a solar project before they sign the permit to look at the design?
Will checks it.
So the building inspector,
Yeah, he checks the electrical for conformance,
before it's installed.
before it's connected.
Okay. Oh, but it could already be set up.
Yeah.
So nobody looks at the plan before.
The select board gets the plan. If it's roof mounted, it's just automatically approved.
Okay,
If it's ground mount, then it depends on how large it is. But we don't really review the design for that either, other than for setback.
okay. Okay, so then it would be the select board first
Yeah, we could make that the.
review and then, obviously Bill
And sign
Wild.
by
says-
the-
Yeah,
And setback's still 35 feet?
Yeah. same
Yep.
thing.
Yeah, same thing.
and then, then inspected. Okay. And we're running close. Yep. We just
2 minutes.
talked about residential versus commercial. Yep, I think those are were my general, oh, here's the other last one. Do we have a Temple solid waste ordinance?
Not that I know of.
What disposal of structures and or foundations shall meet the provisions of the town of Temple solid waste ordinance? So what applies to?
Well, you have to
dispose?
get a demolition permit if you're gonna tear something.
We
down.
do have that.
We do.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll refer to that then.
This is a reference. And we do our waste. Well. right?
Yep,
So is there a tie-in to wetlands requirement? In other words, if I had 10 solar panels that I was getting ready to get rid of, I'm probably gonna take them to Wilton. and
Yeah.
follow whatever they're.
I can refer to the I don't know if they have a policy, but I'll look.
Other than demolition.
Right. I'll look. Okay,
Demolition would be kind of a weird thing, because they're not gonna sit there and destroy the panels.
No.
They're just gonna dismount them and sell them or something.
Yeah. Yep.
But anyway, we can keep that as.
okay. I think that's all I have for now. We'll get another version out and I'll send it off for review by the Soul Smart people before it goes for legal.
Okay,
Sarah, do you need to do any setup?
Figure that out.
we're not gonna do the.
Just, well, we're not doing anymore, it's disappeared.
Small group too. Oh, there's Matt.
Are you in the,
Matt, 6:30, no.
Sarah, are you connected? You disappeared. Okay.
I think I sent this out while we're waiting. I don't know if anybody saw, there's a new report out from New Hampshire Housing. Who can afford to live in New Hampshire? It's online on their,
That's the one I read it on.
webs. Oh, yeah, I did send that out. It's on their website.
Come on in, like.
Um,
Matt, we have a question for you. You all set with a registry for the Beal?
Yeah, that's done.
All files?
All filed.
Yep, thank you.
Great.
Good. So that's Kathy's, that's the answer.
So how do you feel about setup, Sarah? Would you like us to move to form a circle or? Aw. Okay. There's still a few people coming in, but.
We haven't covered affordable doggy housing.
Yeah. Yeah, so do you want to move to the table? Okay.
We're gonna move like we did last time.
So we're doing, we're all moving.
Yeah, I'll take a chair in the audience and use mine.
I guess. I'm staying. There. There's more programming in the last few weeks, not done in 15 years. Suddenly it's got the urge to do techie stuff. My brain is full. We've got to make sure you get it.
Yes.
Just
Moving fast.
display tools.
No, you people did true.
No, just. You shouldn't do this, it's all.
They can, they're just available if they want them. It's just a summary of the changes. So should we get started?
Thank you for coming, people. We're gonna be working with, we've been working with, Sarah Blunder from Southwest Regional Planning Commission as our consultant. This has been, a project, with her for about a year, a little more than about a year, but sorry.
Yes.
Prior to that, it's been, I don't know, 5 or 6 years along this work that we've been doing that's led us to this moment, which Sarah will give a little more of a background on. But tonight we are presenting some proposed changes to PRDs and workforce housing specifically, and we're interested in hearing your feedback. So I'll turn it over to Sarah.
Yeah, so first I'll say, can you guys hear me okay? Okay. Yes, as Christine said, we've been working together on this since last winter. This is Temple's second round of Housing Opportunity Planning, or HOP, a grant funded by InvestNH as part of a third phase in a larger project that's aimed at creating opportunities for affordable housing in Temple. Tonight's meeting is one in a series of community conversations supported through this grant. We're going to focus on 2 ordinances, as Christine said, the Workforce Housing Ordinance and the Planned Residential Development Ordinance, to hear your thoughts on the proposed updates that can make these more effective. We recognize that people have strong feelings on this topic. Our goal is not to persuade you one way or the other this evening, but to make sure everyone understands what's being proposed so that you can make informed decisions when these amendments come to a vote. If tonight's discussion helps you see new possibilities and you come out in support, that's great. If you remain unconvinced, that's okay too. What matters is that you have the information that you need to decide for yourself. And none of the language in these ordinances is final yet. That's part of the purpose of this evening. So there will still be public hearings that happen later in the winter. We're joined this evening by Scott Slattery, an Economic Field Development Specialist from the UNH Cooperative Extension. He'll be helping with small group discussions, and he's here in a totally neutral role, as am I, so feel free to be completely honest with your feedback. Tonight, we're going to have a brief overview of the previous work and what has been accomplished, where we are now in the process, and how you can help. Again, tonight is about shaping, not deciding. These are ideas for updating the zoning, but nothing is final. We want to know how these proposals feel to the community. We're going to go through each topic and give you a chance to weigh in. Your feedback will directly shape how these zoning amendments are drafted for public hearings later in the winter. From there, final changes will go to a town vote in March, so this is your chance to help calibrate them at an early stage. We're going to cover a lot of material. I will pause and check in with you all to make sure everyone understands the new terms and ideas. Please speak up if you're confused. You'll notice QR codes on several slides throughout this presentation. Your feedback on these concepts is important to the process. As we ask questions throughout the presentation, if you prefer to provide anonymous feedback, you can do so on a form that the QR code will load. The QR code on the question slides will bring you to the same form, so you only have to load it once. We'll have printouts of the form available as well if you prefer this method, and they are on the table in the back corner over there. So looking around, I just want to ask, did anybody here attend the previous forum we had a couple weeks ago? Planning board members, you were here too? Excellent. So not too many. Does anybody want to share why they came here tonight?
If you have comments, please use the microphone or nobody can hear you on the remote end.
It's okay. You don't have to share. I don't mind. Anyway, coming together like this has always been part of how Temple plans for its future. Community input has guided each phase of this work, and tonight's discussion continues that tradition. So this project began in 2018 when the town updated its vision statement for the master plan. As residents considered Temple's community identity and what the future could look like, the ability to provide attainable housing for Temple's residents quickly rose to the forefront. In 2020, a community survey showed an openness to alternative housing types among residents. Many respondents expressed support for middle housing, like duplexes and cottages, and more flexible zoning tools, so long as they preserve what Temple residents value most: open space, rural character, and historic identity. This was followed in 2022 by a Plan New Hampshire design charrette, where residents looked at the potential for affordable housing on town-owned land near Temple Elementary School, and discussed zoning strategies that could allow more housing variety while protecting rural character. Ideas such as a neighborhood overlay district and form-based code were explored as ways to shape new development. Together, these steps made it clear that the next phase wasn't more conversation, it was action. To truly enable housing variety, the town would need to look closely at its land use regulations and master plan and identify where targeted changes could open the door for more diverse housing choices. Building on that start, in 2023, the town was awarded HOP funding to update chapters in the master plan and conduct a comprehensive audit of zoning, subdivision, and site plan regulations. The master plan update included broad community engagement with the community through surveys, public listening sessions, and visual preference activities where residents could react to different housing examples and talk about what might feel right for Temple. That process further highlighted a big gap in middle housing, the smaller, more affordable housing options that Temple is mostly lacking. The findings were folded into a master plan update as recommendations for how local land use could be revised to support more variety. This work set the stage for the ordinance updates we've been working on in phase 3. This phase is about implementation. Since last spring, the town has adopted several important zoning changes that we'll walk through in a moment. The town has also updated its subdivision and site plan review regulations based on recommendations from the audit in phase 2. Now the planning board is working on refinements to the planned residential development, or PRD, and workforce housing regulations. We need your feedback to help shape the next set of updates. The housing analysis and regulatory review showed us where zoning was preventing the kinds of housing that people in town were asking for: the smaller homes, housing young families can afford, and options for seniors looking to downsize. Last spring, the town adopted 3 key zoning amendments to reduce barriers to developing more attainable housing. Residents can now build both an attached and a detached accessory dwelling unit on the same lot without needing double acreage. Residential parking requirements have been reduced, lowering construction costs and reducing land disturbance. These parking reforms bring us closer to the new state requirement, but further revision will be necessary to bring the ordinance into alignment with state law. Existing single-family homes can now be converted into up to 3 units, giving us more flexible use of what we already have. These changes came directly out of earlier HOP work, and they show that modest, thoughtful updates can make a real difference. As we finish phase 3, we're focusing on revising Temple's PRD and workforce housing ordinances. The goal is to make these tools more effective and create clearer pathways for affordable and diverse housing in Temple. But first, a little background. A planned residential development, or PRD, is a type of conservation subdivision. They can be developed in the rural residential and agricultural district on properties with at least 6 acres. A PRD differs from a traditional subdivision in that there is a requirement that 40% of the land is dedicated as permanent open space that will never be developed. It also differs from a traditional subdivision because the individual lots within a PRD may have flexibility in lot sizes and frontage, allowing homes to be clustered together, reducing sprawl and land disturbance. The Sarah Drive neighborhood, shown here, is an example of a PRD in Temple. We're looking at ways to make it easier to develop more affordable and diverse housing types within PRDs by revising 3 key provisions and adding a 4th. Temple's workforce housing ordinance offers added flexibility for projects that include homes affordable to people earning 60 to 80% of the area median income. In Temple, this flexibility is only available within a planned residential development, and to date, no workforce housing has been built. The ordinance is based on state law, which requires every municipality to provide reasonable and realistic opportunities for workforce housing as part of its fair share of regional housing needs. Is everybody with me so far? Okay. We're going to focus on proposed changes to the PRD ordinance first. One change we're looking at is how base density is calculated in a planned residential development. Right now, PRDs can end up with fewer homes than a conventional subdivision on the same piece of land. The proposal would fix that by aligning the PRD rules with the subdivision rules, so the math is the same in both cases. This would encourage the development of PRDs over conventional subdivisions. Base density is the number of homes allowed per acre of land under existing zoning. In other words, in some parts of town, you need 2 acres to build a house, and in another part of town, you might need 5 acres to build a house. In a conventional subdivision, you take the total land area of the property to be subdivided. You subtract any new roads and divide it by the minimum lot size for the zoning district. In the rural residential and agricultural district, the minimum lot size is 3 acres. The way the PRD ordinance is currently written, base density excludes all undevelopable land from that calculation. So let's look at an example. You have a 12.5 acre property in the rural residential and agricultural district. 5 acres of that land are not developable because they contain wetland areas and steep slopes. In a conventional subdivision, you are allowed to create 4 new lots, 3 acres each, provided water, septic, setbacks, and frontage requirements can be met. In a PRD right now, that same property could only be subdivided into 2 lots because we can't count that undevelopable land in the base density calculation. We're proposing to bring the density calculation of PRDs in line with the formula used in a conventional subdivision, meaning that in either case, the base density for our example property would be 4 lots. We want to help people choose to develop PRDs over traditional subdivisions because PRDs require that at least 40% of the property be set aside as planned permanent open space. That open space is protected forever, reducing land disturbance and helping to preserve woodlands, wetlands, scenic areas, and other important features. Unlike unused land in a conventional subdivision, all of which becomes someone's yard, PRD open space is intentional. It has a planned use, whether as neighborhood trails, a park, agricultural conservation land, or the like, and it will never be developed. In exchange for this permanent protection, PRDs provide greater flexibility. The planning board may reduce requirements such as lot size or road frontage when it makes sense for the property, making it possible to cluster homes in ways that protect sensitive land and create stronger neighborhood design. Encouraging PRDs provides several important benefits for Temple. PRDs permanently protect a large area of land as open space, helping to maintain the town's rural character, scenic views, and ecological functions. PRDs, as proposed, encourage different housing types. The proposed changes could include smaller units and multifamily options that aren't always possible in conventional subdivisions. This creates more opportunities for missing housing. By offering a broader range of housing choices, PRDs make it easier for residents to remain in Temple as their needs change, whether downsizing, starting out, or aging in place. PRDs should start with the same unit count as a conventional subdivision. Is everybody with me on base density? Okay. So our first question, and you'll see there's a QR code there. Do you think this change would make PRDs a more attractive option than conventional subdivisions? Does it seem reasonable to have the same count for base density in both cases? And you can say, I think it's reasonable. I think it's terrible. We just kind of want to know what you guys think, and feel free to speak up or put it in the QR code or write it on the form. Or none of the above. It's okay. Well, let's move on. There we go. Okay. Yes, of course.
Sorry. So when we're talking about setting aside more land with the, what is it, PRD? The PRD, can the land that's set aside be used for farming instead of just
Yes.
set aside for hiking and trails?
Yes, it has to be set aside as a planned open space, and agricultural uses generally fall within that. And because it doesn't have to be put into conservation, it just has to be designated on the deed and the site plan that gets filed with the registry that nothing can be built there. So, yes,
So farming fits.
yes.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions before we move on to bonus density? Okay. Now that we all understand base density, let's look at the bonus density. A density bonus is a planning tool and also an incentive that allows more homes to be built than the base zoning would normally allow. In exchange for those additional homes, the project provides something of value in addition to housing back to the community. That could be things like affordability or open space. For example, if base zoning allows 10 homes on a piece of land, a density bonus might allow 12 or 15, but only if the project includes benefits the town is seeking. It's an incentive because a property owner has choices. They could build a couple of large single-family homes that sell for a high price, or they could use the density bonus to create several smaller, more attainable homes and still make the project financially viable. The community gains things it needs, while property owners gain flexibility to design projects that make sense. In the end, density bonuses are a way to encourage housing that aligns with local needs and community goals. Do you guys have any questions regarding the concept of a density bonus? Okay. Moving along. Next, we're looking at updating the PRD bonus system. Right now, PRDs can get up to 25% more units, but only if they include workforce housing. We're proposing to add a few new ways to qualify for bonuses and allow them to be combined. All projects would still need to meet water and septic standards. In addition to the workforce housing bonus, we're proposing a small unit bonus of up to 25% more units if they are 1,200 square feet or less. In addition to reducing land disturbance, encouraging smaller units offers cost savings, helping to create the housing Temple needs. A shared service bonus of up to 10% more units when units share wells and or septic systems could reduce land disturbance and development costs. A low impact development or LID bonus of up to 10% more units when ecologically sensitive stormwater management practices are used. Low impact development methods replicate the natural movement of water on a property. Methods could include rain gardens, permeable pavement, vegetated swales, and green roofs, among other things. Do you guys think that these bonuses seem like a good way to create housing diversity in Temple while still protecting the open space and the character of the community? Okay. And then at our last forum, a few people asked for examples of what low impact development actually looks like. So before we move on, this is a quick visual and another QR code that doesn't take you to a form for the evening. It takes you to an EPA document that explains what LIDs are and how they can be implemented. And there's a few more pictures and more links and that sort of thing. So I'll just pause for a second because nobody's pulling out their phone to learn more, which is, it's fine. We can always come back to this if anybody needs it.
You make the slides available to us afterwards to share.
Yes, great, certainly. Okay, back to the bonuses. Right now, the PRD ordinance limits density bonuses to a 25% cap. The new proposal would allow different types of bonuses, such as workforce housing, smaller units, shared services, and low-impact development to be combined or stacked. In practice, this could mean 30% or even 50% bonus density, depending on the mix of community benefits a project provides. For example, if a project included shared wells but not shared septic, it might receive only part of the shared service bonuses, like 5% instead of the full 10. Pardon me. The planning board would retain discretion in how these bonuses are awarded. Do we have any questions on the concept of bonus stacking? Okay. PRDs are only allowed in the rural residential and agricultural district, where the base density is 1 home per 3 acres. This diagram and table show how the 30% and 50% bonus scenarios would apply to different property sizes. A 50% density bonus would work out to 1 home per 2 acres within the PRD. Where a dash is shown in the table, it means the bonus would not apply because all partial units are rounded down. All bonuses would remain subject to septic and water availability. To balance the bonuses, one proposed safeguard would limit the number of residential structures on a property to what is allowed under base density. This means bonus density could add more units overall, but not more separate buildings than the base zoning allows. This diagram shows a little line through one of the squares. This represents a small unit duplex. So let's have another vote. Feel free to use the QR code. Could you support 1 home on 2 acres of land within PRDs or a 50% cap? Or does 2.5 acres feel more appropriate, which would be a 30% cap? The acres per home are just for calculating how many homes can be built, not the actual lot sizes within the PRD. In a PRD, homes can be clustered together with the rest of the land kept open. Can I put anyone on the spot? Does anybody think 30% is reasonable? Okay, we got a couple for 30. Does anybody think 50% or 2 acres of land per housing unit could be reasonable? Okay, we got a few for 50. Does anybody have any questions before we move on? Okay. This diagram demonstrates the different density bonus options applied with or without a structure cap. These do not represent actual layouts. Here's what a 30% bonus could look like, or 1 home per 2.5 acres within the PRD. And again, we have our little duplex with the little line through it. There we go. Here is the 50% bonus or one home per 2 acres within the PRD with and without a structure cap. What do you prefer? Should we include the structure cap or should we scrap it? Do you guys have any feelings one way or the other?
So the no structure cap allows a developer to do either of those. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah, no structure cap.
Does anybody else feel differently or similarly?
I agree, no structure cap.
Okay, well, moving on. The final change we're proposing to the PRD ordinance is allowing new small unit multifamily housing. Right now, Temple zoning allows multifamily conversions of existing homes built before March of 2025, meaning an existing single-family house can be converted into 3 housing units. What's being proposed is the ability to build new 3-unit structures within a PRD with one important condition. Each unit must be 1,200 square feet or smaller. The reason for this is that not everyone who needs affordable housing qualifies under the state's statutory definition of workforce housing. People on a fixed income or with limited means may not meet HUD's income thresholds, but they still need smaller, more attainable housing options. By limiting unit size, these will naturally be less costly to build and to buy or rent than larger single-family homes. The result is more middle housing, smaller scale, moderately priced homes that give people options to stay in Temple as their housing needs change. A minimum of 9 acres would be required to build 1 triplex without bonus density, or 6 acres if a 50% density bonus were approved. So what do you guys think? Would this be helpful for Temple? Is this something you could support? Right behind you.
I think the drawing is cute.
Should we take that as you could support this? Okay. Does anybody else have feelings about this? Is it something that seems like you couldn't, or it seems like a great idea, or you don't really mind what happens in another development?
Yeah, you probably should. So I've got questions on this. I don't quite understand it. So 9-acre minimum with no bonus density. So that's if the units are larger than 1,200 square feet?
No.
No, what, explain.
So
I don't understand why we're talking about the 2 different things here.
just to give you an example, so if all of the bonus density that we've discussed tonight doesn't get passed in March or doesn't come to the ballot,
I see.
it would require 9 acres
Okay.
unless these were workforce housing units, but this would only apply to small units. So yes, we're also recommending a small unit bonus, but this is sort of separate than that, if that makes sense.
So, sorry. So I grew up in Jersey when I was a kid, and what we had close by to us was 3 units like this, but they were stacked on top of each other. And what would happen is the grandparents would be on the first floor, the oldest generation. Their children would be on the second floor, and the young couple that just got married would be on the top floor. And everybody would move down as the generations died off, and then their children would go above. And that worked fantastic. And we had families in houses that were 100 years of the same family in those houses doing that. It provided for childcare. It provided for a less expensive way to live. It just, you know, the lawn was taken care of by the middle generation and the younger generation. The grandparents did not. It just worked great.
Yep.
So we're in a town that has an aging population, and our kids can't afford to buy housing. This is a wonderful solution to make it so the younger generation has a place to be, or at least a very inexpensive place to start if they want to end up in another unit someplace else.
Yeah. Thank you for your comment.
Yeah, I think we're seeing a really big societal change, and there are far less large nuclear families and many more single folks or couples. And so something like this would help support that shift. That you don't need a bedroom house if you're a couple and a dog.
It's true. It's very true. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to share? Okay, let's move on. Let's discuss the Workforce Housing Overlay District. An overlay district creates special rules that differ from what is normally allowed within a defined area. Sometimes overlays limit uses to protect resources, like the Aquifer Protection Overlay. Other times, they're about creating flexibility, and that's the intent of the Workforce Housing Overlay District. This overlay district is proposed for the 18-acre town-owned property next to the school. This property was selected for the overlay because it offers community value and options, not because there are any plans on the table. So I'm just going to repeat that. There are no plans for this land. The purpose of the overlay is to keep every option available so that if the town ever wants to consider housing or another use, the zoning won't be the barrier. With current rules, if workforce housing were developed on this property, most additional uses would not be possible. Workforce housing often supports families, and locating homes near the school could help make living in Temple more feasible for teachers, school staff, and other essential workers. It's also a way to support young families who might otherwise be priced out of town and to help Temple continue as a vibrant, multi-generational community. We're proposing the overlay at this time in an effort to be proactive rather than reactive. Again, there are no plans for development within the overlay, none. What we're doing is making sure that if someday the community wants to do something, the zoning allows it. Good planning means setting up the framework ahead of time, not making changes in a rush when an opportunity appears. There are two important reasons to create this overlay district. First, it provides flexibility for the future. PRDs require that 40% of the land be set aside as permanent open space. Forever is a long time for a town-owned property with so much community potential. An overlay district avoids locking land up permanently while also allowing workforce housing to be built there. So if workforce housing is ever developed there, the town will still have additional options for uses on this property. The second reason is it will reduce one of the biggest barriers, land cost. Cost of acquiring land drives up the price of the housing. Because this property is already owned by the town, that barrier can be removed. The town could structure an agreement where a developer builds and manages the housing, perhaps through a long-term lease, partnership, or even a housing trust. This approach makes it more financially feasible to create homes that are affordable to working families and essential workers. So what do you guys think? Should the town develop an overlay on the property next to the school? Does anybody have any feelings about that?
Can I just add a couple things? One is, at our last session, a question was brought up about selling the property and using the money for other town purposes. And I just wanted to make the point that if that happens, then anything could be built there versus if we retain control of the property, then we get to choose what shows up on that land. The other thing is, that came up at our last session was about potential solar on that property. So there's two members of the Renewable Energy Committee here who, I don't know if you want to make a comment, but.
I'm the chair and I'm sitting on a chair. Yeah. So we have looked all around town for appropriate places for a PV array, a solar array. And to cover the current municipal electric costs, it would take about 25 kilowatts of PV, which is maybe 75, 80 feet long of solar panels. And the place that Bruce actually, I think, came up with, or maybe Tim, Bruce or Tim said, have you thought about this one? We looked everywhere, up here, fire station roof. There are so many things that just don't work well. And behind the ball field fence, there is a space that's maybe 100 feet by 500 feet that would be just perfect at south facing. And there's very good electric access there. So if you look at the diagram on the screen, if you think about it, the lower left square or rectangular thing that butts up against the road, the very back of that area would be where we would initially look at putting a PV array. And with current photovoltaic pricing and things like that, it could have quite a significant benefit for the town. Probably something like a 5-year payback, we're hoping. And maybe with some form of government support, it could be way better than that and have very little impact. So the good thing about this is that a ground-mounted PV array like this is not permanent. It would be on some sorts of piles or ballasted concrete system. And if we chose to do a different use for the land in future and that array needed to move or be disassembled, then it could very easily be moved without much additional cost or loss of value. So if there was an access road like that, no, it wouldn't interfere at all. If there was a large municipal building put right in front of it, that would interfere if it was put to the south of the array. But on the other hand, that may give us the opportunity to put a roof-mounted array on a large municipal building. So there are ways I think we can work that through. We recently visited or went to the member meeting for Community Power New Hampshire, which was in lovely Waterfall Valley. We had a gorgeous drive up there on a Saturday. And some of the projects that CPCNH has supported over the last few years, in particular, one includes quite a large PV array in Warner, New Hampshire, on an old gravel pit. And so what we learned is that Warner has a couple of PV arrays for their municipal load, similar to what we're talking here, but they're also putting in a much larger array, which would either have taxable income to the town, or in this case, because the town doesn't need the electricity, they would get a payment in lieu of taxes. So there's a possibility that some remote part of this property, probably mainly out of public view, could also be a larger PV array up in the megawatt level. The one in Warner is 5 megawatts, and I think something like that could be a very significant financial benefit to the town. So it would be an ideal spot for that. That is similar to this plan. There's no hard plan for that, but it's an opportunity that may face us in the future. And so what I'd ask is, if we do go ahead in planning out this property, that we consider maybe 5 acres for photovoltaics that could give us some other financial benefit. There we go. Any questions? One last thing on this, very, very low visual impact. If you drive up Hill Road and see the PV array on our house, it's about this high. It's a 45-degree tilt with normal size photovoltaic modules. And so I think something there behind the outfield fence of the old ball field, it'd be virtually invisible.
So how would a project like that affect this?
If the overlay district were passed, if the town voted to do both of those things with this land, it would be able to. It depends. If there's no overlay district, there's a possibility that solar could not also be done on that property, depending on how much acreage it takes up. because 40% of this property would need to be unused. I mean, I guess it would be up to the town if the town considered a solar farm to be a non-use, but I mean, generally that wouldn't be considered because it does change the landscape and it doesn't change it for recreation or agriculture or anything like that. And the other piece of this that's important to consider is if there is not an overlay district and one or the other were developed, since workforce housing can only right now be in a PRD, the 40% of the acreage that is set aside, half of that, so 20% of the total buildable acreage of the property needs to be set aside into non-use. And that's important to consider because with this particular property, I don't know a lot about the landscape, but people have told me, you know, that it slopes and it's wet in the back. So those parts of the property would not be able to count towards, or not entirely towards the 40% that's conserved. And those parts probably wouldn't be appropriate for solar either. So with an overlay district, it's very likely that both projects could work together. But since neither project has a plan, I can't say these would work. But it creates a flexibility that doesn't currently exist.
So I've been thinking about this project a lot. I like it. So it gives us some really interesting options. If the town retains ownership of the land and leases the land for a very reasonable cost, then the buildings can be owned by the people that move into them.
Yeah.
And it takes them out of, I mean, to get a house in this area now, it's basically $600,000 because it's $200,000 for the lot and the bank forces you to build a big enough house to sell it for $6.
Yep.
But if we keep the lot rent really cheap, $200 for the footprint, because all the land stays with the town, it's just the footprint of the house. So if we keep it cheap and tie it to inflation so people know they're not going to get gouged down the road, then the banks will love it. And people will be able to buy these, sell these units down the road. So a young couple or somebody who's in a situation, a police person, a fire person, an EMT, a teacher, I'd love to see it limited to them first for being able to buy this. Seniors, nice. Yep, seniors. But if we can, usually your town workers and your school teachers have a lower income than a lot of professionals. So you like to try to help them out in a situation like this. But once they get it, their equity grows, just like any other housing. But it's basically, it grows based on what their core investment was originally. So it's not going to be like selling a house on 5 acres of land, but it's still a house. And that will still grow as real estate grows. So I think I love the idea of the town retaining the property and doing a lease just for the footprint of the house. And I love the idea of solar as well. There's a really interesting project in Alberta, Canada, where an entire neighborhood shares their heat. And they're, instead of collecting PV, they're collecting heat because you get 50% of the energy from the sun instead of 20%. So it's much more efficient so long as you're going to use heat. So, they're way up north and it's working great. That project's been going for 10 years or so now. It's working wonderful. It just gives us a lot of options for doing that can really benefit the town and the people that would be in a position to get into it originally.
That's the goal, create more options.
And to be clear, any use of this would be voted on at town meeting.
I think there have been arrangements like that in the region in terms of land trusts. Is that right? Yeah.
Yes, and resident-owned communities as well.
Okay. And
Actually leads the country in resident-owned communities.
yeah, I didn't know that. The final change to both the workforce housing and the PRD ordinances is the addition of a provision to explicitly permit condominiums in PRDs and workforce housing developments. This doesn't change the number or size of buildings allowed. It simply makes it clear that condo ownership is treated the same as any other housing type as required by state law. Yeah, it keeps falling asleep.
No.
There we go. Okay. So now that you've made it through the full presentation, it's time to hand things over to you. I don't know, Scott, do you think we need to break into two groups? I think we could just do. Yeah. Well, perhaps we'll circle up. So let's see, we're going to talk through some of the proposals to get your input a little bit further than we have so far. And this is more time to be candid, to flag anything you don't fully understand or you're not sure you can support or you'd like to see changed. Your feedback will help us calibrate the proposed amendments so they reflect Temple's needs and values. We're going to focus on 3 topics: density bonuses, small unit multifamily housing, and the workforce housing overlay district. There are short summaries of the proposal over there on the table. And as you do this, we'd like to ask you 2 questions. What questions or concerns do you have about the proposal? And what additional information would help you or your neighbors feel more confident before voting on amendments? We're going to take about 20 minutes if we need that much time and just kind of summarize our discussion.
We are a little closer together.
Usually I'm loud enough. So you don't, but I don't know if there's folks on the line that maybe we want, so again. Okay, great. And maybe I'll slide over this way so I don't have my back to everybody except for maybe this gentleman right here. So folks, I'm Scott. I'm with the University of New Hampshire's Cooperative Extension. As Sarah said, we work a lot with the Regional Planning Commission to do events just like this. I don't live here in Temple. I live over in Hudson, right? But I'm the Hillsborough County representative. So people ask when we come to these forums, well, what do you think? I don't think this isn't my community. You want to know what I think? Come to Hudson, because I think a lot about what goes on in Hudson. That's not. So let's talk about some of the things we talked about tonight. Density bonuses. We'll start there. What do folks think about that? We heard some real positive comments, but I'm sure maybe some folks may still have questions about it or about the bonus stacking, or I mean, any of the types of things that we talked about with the bonuses. What do folks think?
I would say that when you talk about the density bonus, we looked at it. I think we turned to the map, right? And said, you know, he's a realtor, like, is this gonna be financially viable for developers that you work with? And he said no. So that's why we went up to the 50%. So just to give you some background where that came from, and that is cited your comment, you were talking about 30 versus 50%. Matt? Okay. I was saying that when we talked about 30% versus 50% for the density bonus, and I said, is this gonna make it financially viable for developers? And he said no. So I didn't really want to add anything on that, but that's why we went 50 as another option.
And at the last meeting, everyone seemed to agree with that.
It's the difference really on, when you look at the numbers, is kind of negligible.
And the no structure cap too is well.
Right,
The structure cap messes that whole
Right.
right.
visual and how it would be developed. Which just doesn't make sense.
And also, like you said, the unit calculation for developers to make projects feasible too, because developers are in the business of, making money too. So, but we want to find a balance, right? Is that the way? Well, I think as Sarah said in the very beginning, preserving what you folks want here in Temple, your rural character, your open space, the kind of sense of community that you have already. But it sounds like folks are pretty in favor of, some of these density bonuses, Sarah, to create some opportunities for seniors to stay in town, for young people to still live here. I love the gentleman's example of growing up, in the 3-level housing. I mean, that's very common in, lots of cities like that. It's like, absolutely, it's very, very European, absolutely, so.
I got
Please.
on the low impact development at 10%, I would love to see that be a bigger number. The planet has hit its first tipping point 2 weeks ago. There's gonna be more. So, I mean, low impact development, I feel like is very valuable for everybody. I think we should incentivize it more than 10%.
What percentage do you think it should be?
25? I think it's equivalent to small unit bonus.
So, very clearly, and I agree with you, things like that, incentives for informed and development. I think there's a song back there saying that they pay part of it.
Pardon?
I think there were a few of us in there were singing it in our head too,
Yeah,
at the same time.
Most of the massive, folks feel that have family members or folks they know that would love to live in Temple but can't because the housing costs.
Mhm.
Yeah. I don't.
Yeah, I mean, my kids are in their mid-20s, they're mid to late 20s, and also like, they don't want a big house that they have to maintain, they want something small, and they wanna move back then.
Very common. We're hearing that all over the state as we're doing these types of hop forums and different things, and very similar communities to Temple, the same type of thing is how can we preserve our character, but create those opportunities for seniors not to get taxed out, for young people to come back into town. What are folks thinking? I know we're jumping a little bit ahead about, well, maybe the small unit multifamily, bonus that we talked about, that the diagram that the gentleman liked the picture of. What do folks think about that concept? You like that one?
I don't see that happening anywhere. I mean, that's what she got.
Yeah,
It
it is.
Yeah, I mean,
It's,
and one thing to keep in mind, the state is making rules about a lot of this stuff. If we don't have some plans in place, the state's gonna tell us what to do. So we're kind of getting it like this, but really starting to have a lot more. Address the housing crunch a lot more than they have in the past.
So, I love the character of Temple. I grew up in the seacoast area for most of my life up in Hampshire, and the small towns, Danville, Fremont. I mean, going by state regulations, they turned it into New Jersey. I left New Jersey a long time ago. And I was like, but they actually turned where I used to live in New Hampshire into New Jersey. Houses right on the road, paved driveways. I would love to see, in order to keep the feel of the town allowing a dirt road back into the woods. And these units all built where we don't see them from the road. So when you drive through Temple, it still feels like country, woods, farms, and the housing is somewhere. I mean, that's what I'm doing on my problem, that my house will not be seen by the road, from the road, if they're driving 400, 500 feet off the road. I'd love to see something like that, this cluster housing that we're talking about, where it doesn't have to be this broad paved, huge, water treatment, we can get turned into a nightmare real quick. It also keeps it less expensive for the developers, if they're allowed to do it with a well-designed dirt road. And it just, we've got a lot of dirt roads in town, it keeps the character now. So.
I don't, I,
Well, no, we don't.
no.
Yeah, one of the people is injury any housing anywhere in septic. Finding areas where you ask for just want some of these are. Do these come along with equivalent septic requirements? Yes. The state imposes those. We sure make it possible or make it impossible. Well, the land has to be appropriate. Work gas, starting to build work. The area septic system and all that stuff, say, those per unit, per person, it's probably per total number of. That's that honest number of that.
If somebody uses the number of bedroom, it was also, different components, a different setback. You each year have a different setback from wells, for instance, you have a septic tank. And it also have to have. So you have to arrange everything, find a good spot where the birds and deep enough soils. And arrange that almost first and then develop it. Where you can push house after that.
And then now there's nothing to do with that, that's also good. It's certain multi-family or multi-unit. There would be a benefit in a shared surface. Correct. Which means maybe it will make these stuff in this.
I think there's two things you're talking about here, like the triplex, that the example that we talked about where they might be on one system together, again, state mandated based on the size, number of bedrooms, blah, 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 blah. And then the shared services that Sarah was showing, where it showed multiple houses kind of feeding into one type of stuff. So similar, but a little bit different. I just want to make sure that, folks kind of understood the difference between the two. What do folks think about the shared services? I mean, we had some lively conversation about that last time.
Does anything have to do with that, one way or the other?
I think you have to have something written up. Right in the end.
Right.
Identifies what everybody's responsibility is. And what happened to somebody, for instance, you got a duplex, shared system. Right. These people are very conscientious, they don't think, these people put all the coffee guns and reach down the system, they tell it to either. And then it's not that they both pay for it, and that's the issue, come up with a shared route.
So this came up at the last session.
It was a real hot topic, that's why I brought it up, to make sure.
And basically the solution has to be done with meeting, that the mandates, covenants in the meeting saying you were responsible and you were responsible.
All right, which we require.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, of course.
Yeah.
So, he always said that's the word.
Right, so it requires an HOA, correct, and correct, I thought looks like that it requires sections. Annual basis or something. Okay. To hopefully make sure that I'm not on my grade, that I shouldn't be done, okay.
No, absolutely, it's a really good point. Of course, enforcement's a different issue.
Correct.
At least you got the framework there for enforcement. Correct. And this building in the church here is septic.
So, does anybody feel that that shouldn't be incentivized versus should be incentivized?
I think it should certainly be allowed, otherwise you'll end up with a situation where you're probably can't be.
It would be allowed regardless. This is just about whether to incentivize.
Oh, that's right, to add that extra, bonus point.
I mean, if I could add one septic system, versus same septic system.
Right.
It should be a no-brainer to do it. One family that's using bleach and ammonia
Yes, Beal about citizens.
So I was gonna say,
It'll probably be a disaster, and everybody's paying for it.
yeah, like you mentioned the enforcement part, I'll follow a scenario where, you know, my mother lives to me, he's 87. And trying to explode that or she can put down, well, what she can, is a check, you know, so she can mess up my own septic. And it's, you know, it's not because she's being negligent, this is 87 years old. And I'll be next.
Yeah, right.
I'll be even worried, and, you know, my wife and I will be next, you know, my son will be yelling at us if we put something where it doesn't belong, so.
If you talk to my, I was talking to my 22-year-old, this is my basement.
No, but don't tell us.
Not gonna do that.
That's
I saw the insurance score, I'll have to say.
It's a really good point to bring up, you know, but people are gonna understand, they're gonna, you know, buy into a development like this that has a shared system, they're gonna go that complicated. And you're right, you know, anyone on the documentation of this, informed with the totally other issue. So again, it's just a way to potentially create more opportunity to incentivize, you know, additional housing.
I'm not a subject expert, but I would think that. The fix for that kind of thing is the number of inspections. You know, early detection. It's a lot easier than if we let it get out here.
And since there's a homeowners association retired, you have to be part of the fees, go into basically like fine.
Expected every 3 months instead of every year or 2 years, you know.
Yeah, you have to pay every month, so generally you can't say, I'm not.
Yeah.
You had some kind of fund that everybody put in,
Yeah,
We can make recommendations.
Yeah, some kind of reserve replacement type of.
yeah, so there's always one of the fixes, and nobody steals in the budget.
Now, so no reason to make these people.
So I wanna make sure that we stay on track, Sarah gave us about 20 minutes to have this initial conversation, I wanna make sure we cover everything. Are folks good with the small unit multifamily? I think we talked about it, it's exclusive, there's no income restrictions, everything good? Let's talk about the overlay district, because there was a lot of lively discussion at the last meeting about the overlay district, and some of it was, is do we want to encumber this property? For all the good reasons that were brought up tonight, but there were also other reasons not to encumber this property. But what do folks think about that? We had some really good conversation, go ahead.
Does the overlay district require you to use it in that way, or the overlay district give you the option to?
I believe it should be, I'll defer to Sarah.
It gives you the option. I mean, basically, it means that this is one place in town where you can build workforce housing that is not in PRD. It does not mean that it has to be developed there, but it will be the only place in town that is not bound by PRD provisions. So that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine.
Well, I think, you know, from our perspective, as Bill said. We see the state push coming down, right? And for good reason, by the way. And we looked at Temple and said, where could we do this?
Yeah.
And because it was owned by the town, and because it's near the school, you know, and it's undeveloped, we thought, well, maybe this might be a place to do that. And I'll share that one of the folks that had high opinion, lives right next door, right? So that's one of the challenges, I don't want that housing next to where I live. And that's fair. So that's part of what happened last time. But
I don't see anything wrong with it. I mean, if we write it out, it's the spot, in the schools, we have the highway right there, so all that. I think. It's not that I'm against it, I just think that restricting workforce housing only in the PRD. Maybe we. That's maybe when you use that, I don't know. You're just saying that. You know, people that say, don't have as much money, you're all gonna live in this one spot, there's no place else in town.
It could be another PRD.
But it's not like. It's not. But.
So, but I think that can solve in the town by the AUD pools lighting up. So you can end up with these units that are not part of the house, or the back, that's a 1,200 square foot house. Instead of some tiny little thing, and now you've got basically workforce housing behind someone's house. So I think that kind of solves that problem.
That's kind of what you look at, we're providing an opportunity for housing, we're not forcing that. Yeah, that's not what we're after, but, hey, we're looking for, hey. Can we find a voice that would be an opportunity maybe going forward if needed, and if the town wants it?
Yeah, no, if it's not unreasonable, they can say, well, all right, we can have it, it's allowed anywhere.
Right.
And I also.
I follow the bills pretty closely. I have not seen that
Yeah.
yet.
Yeah.
What I have seen is reducing the minimum acreage.
Yeah.
Requirement right now, we read what I've read, it's going to come back around, it's not decided, it's very early still, is that they could say they can't have lot sizes, requirements bigger than 2 acres. So we try.
You know, that failed was.
That's what happened in Fremont, Dan, that's what happened in those.
It didn't pass this last session, there's a lot of.
So is there an angle to making it so that we can keep the larger lot sizes?
Yeah. And it is the 50% bonus cap in the PRDs.
Right. So let's make sure you do it. Yeah.
But, you know, I don't know, all the bills, they go to the moment, so I moved around a lot, that's. Boarding, that's, I know, sorry. Anyways, but, anyways, what I wanted to say was that, I attended one of the recent, sessions where they talked about some of the legislative changes, and one of the things that really got my attention, and we caveat by this, by saying this. I am not proposing or supporting the idea of mobile homes or modular homes to death. Well, I just wanted to say that one of the things that they brought up was in the entire state of New Hampshire, there has not been an approved law, if I understood it right. There has not been an approved placement for mobile homes or modular home anywhere in the entire state in 2 decades. It's completely zoned out of the state.
Good for that.
Right? And I thought that was just kind of interesting that, you know, that, and again, I'll say my sister lives in Maine, she lives in a trailer. Just throw that out. I'm not proposing that it get done. I'm just saying that, you know, I was surprised. On a positive note, what the state did do, though, if I understand correctly, and please correct me if you know it, is that, for those places that already exist, if they come up for sale, the folks that live in those parks have the option to buy that.
Correct, that
property.
is correct.
And if they do so, they own it in perpetuity. So we're intentionally not misusing, so I think that, you know, I think that's.
You hit it right on the head.
There's one right in place.
Correct, there's actually seven.
Well, there's one that I know, but I'm good, but. I have.
And across the street from the Dairy Queen,
I
correct.
have a house of bunch of.
And there's another one right on 102, right on the Litchfield, like right on the border with Litchfield there. So he's correct, and they have to, those times you prove new manufactured home products in roughly 20 years. But you're right, as they come up for sale, or even not necessarily for sale. The New Hampshire Community Loan Fund is one of the biggest supporters of these resident only communities or rocks, and I think you touched on it earlier, she said, New Hampshire has more rocks than any other state. So it's really, you know, kind of a testament, so yeah, we can preserve that. And you see these parks getting upgraded along the way, and I'm not certainly not advocating cars, don't get me wrong. But people upgrading within the park themselves, you know, taking those 1950s era trailers out there and actually getting more, you know, maybe not too long. So again, it's another, you know,
Once they own the land, all of a sudden it changes.
it becomes a right, and it becomes stakeholder, right?
Yes.
And not necessarily what they're stakeholder.
Frankly, no reason about that whole thing, it's hard to find. So my background was, the first place I ever rented as an adult was a mobile home. I didn't stay there long, I didn't like it. It was in North Carolina, it was an addition that wasn't insulated, and fortunately, he got one.
Yeah.
But, even in North Carolina, but, I, you know, I know a lot of people that that's a growth thing. You know, and he thought that's,
So just lastly, as we wrap up, I just want to make sure that, I know we talked about that there's going to be some opportunities though to create, you know, in the PRD, some of these with the smaller unit, you know, density bonus points and things like that. So it doesn't just restrict it to the overlay district. So there are some other opportunities. So, but I think from what we're hearing is at least somewhat positive. Anything last that people just want to touch on, sir?
What's the definition of manufactured home?
that was interesting too.
Mine, and I'm certainly no expert, you know, but that, you know, yeah.
What I caught from the conversation was. There, you know, there's, it's the regulation. For the building standard. There's a standard for mobile homes. There's a standard for modular homes.
Yeah.
And that's the standard for residential homes. And that's where the distinction is, and I don't think it's in New Hampshire that did this, but there's a new standard, a new type of homes. A modular plus, or something like that, that they propose in this state actually too. Where one of the things that I understood that came out of it was, if you are going to sell or appraise, if you're gonna appraise one of these modular plus homes, it has to be appraised against other modular plus homes. Or you stick them home. There are things.
Right.
Yeah, I think what they're trying to do is trying to say, these houses aren't built any different than the stick-built house.
Except they're often more energy efficient.
And the whole differentiation piece, the fact that they don't appreciate.
They do appreciate if they're in a residential community.
Yeah, but I think that whole standard and what we're trying to do is to make inroads into improving the appraisal piece. That values those places to make them more entertaining, more.
So really said it towards house on Middle Road. I believe, I wasn't around at the time, but I believe it came on the trail. From the. 2,000 all together. Each of them, like, so say, I don't, we guys, not just not. Any questions, so come along and. So I like the opposite, you can tell.
Yeah, I did on trucks. I bought a house in Berwick, it was the same thing. The only reason that I knew it was modular was because we went to the center of the house. Down in the basement, you can see the connectors. Or the connector, other than that, it was on 4 acres. You know,
Well, they are state built houses, right? They're built to control the environment as well.
but they have there's a different regulation they're built under, and that's what kind of drives that. Negative appeal, I guess.
Is a mobile home also?
Yeah, there's two, from what I understand, there's two separate building codes for a modular and a mobile. And then the last piece is the standard for state.
We even have in our people's home, you talk about a mobile home.
But manufactured in mobile was very different.
Used to be for years, mobile homes were allowed. You don't take the tires off, put them on blocks, right, make them a permanent structure on blocks. Then they changed the state did, I believe, to actually pour a pad. I think that's still the code to this day. But you can have the two tires on, who's this?
And I'm saying,
The tires.
even a model, different standards than back in the old cable. Maybe each piece title must.
Well, we're not proposing that.
Well, that's the whole conversation, the tiny houses typically are like, we, right, yeah, so they really are favorable home, right? The small, and it's created quite
Conversation.
And manufacturing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But why, you know, I asked the question, why would the city this update and this whole tiny home thing happen?
Affordability, yes.
Affordability and, you know, just speaking for my own, kids, they wanna work to live, not
Live to work, right?
put it into their house.
Yeah. You know, the last thing I'd like to say that, you know, I can caught from that presentation, these are all things I caught from that presentation, believe it or not. But they talked about how, and you mentioned this, that to make a house. To make money on building a house right now, you know, they have to build a $700,000 house. Just, and just drive around. All new housing that I see anywhere. And a perfect example is in Peterborough, if anybody's familiar, going towards Beltanes on the right side of the road. Where they're building these mansion-sized houses, all within 10 feet of each other. In this small little footprint. And I'm like. Yeah, they had. But everywhere, that's what I see everywhere. There's another one in North, this is going in, you know, by the Dollar Tree.
Oh, that's what that. Oh, right.
Oh, that's what that
I think
is.
that's a multifamily, that might be multifamily, so it look like I have more than a couple of buildings, but it is big. Oh, anyways.
In terms of space, you can see some people within mobile homes that are like 300 square feet.
Yep.
Yeah.
They live on boats.
Yep, exactly.
The first hearing will likely be in December.
I was just gonna say thank you, folks, for this. I'm gonna turn it back over to Sarah, let her take you to the next steps. Thank you.
And I'm gonna actually turn this over to Christine because I do not have the correct date on why. However, the QR code is correct. And it will take you to the town website where the appropriate dates exist, or will exist soon.
Yeah, I would say stay tuned for the official dates for the public hearing, but we typically have the first one in December and not too close to Christmas, so that so we get people to come. Yeah, and then the second one, if necessary, would be early-ish January. Like, probably not the first meeting, maybe so maybe the second, or maybe it is January. The first hearing is usually December, so we have time for the legal review and any changes. Yeah, also it gets also.
Here.
Yeah, 20. So it's just the first one, like the weeks, not January.
Okay, so keep your eyes peeled for that. If possible, we're gonna send on a postcard. Well, maybe not. We'll see if we manage it. But it will be on the town website, and again, there's summaries of the proposed changes on the table in the corner. If anybody who wants to take one, because we want more time to review, or propose with your neighbor who's not so sure they understand it. And again, come to the public hearings, there will be further opportunity to show your support or your disdain. Either way, it's all allowed. And thank you so much for sharing your evening with us tonight. I feel like this was a really productive conversation. I hope you all feel the same way. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll take all the feedback into consideration and we'll sit at our probably our next meeting. Yeah, and then we'll make some decisions. Yeah. You want to add anything?
No, you're. Look at that. Report to the next meeting.
The second meeting. Yeah. Yeah, so.
We're gonna have you December.
Yeah. Do we want to end the meeting officially? Or is it?
Yeah.
You sure?
We make motion. Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. You get there. Well, it'd be bad. It's not small, but they would be old.
That's right on the.
Thanks.